This is really interesting. Again, I ran across this last night. So the guy's name is James Broadbent, and he is the CEO of Narrative. He wrote this thing on his predictions, all right? So this is really interesting and scary, and I hate it. He says there's a new vendor on the block. So what he's basically saying here is, if you go to shoot a wedding or you go to shoot an event, you're going to have to deal with a new vendor. And it's not the video guy. It's the content creators that are being hired by brides and grooms separately. So they're going to hire a video person, they're going to hire a photographer, and then they're going to hire content creators that are going to create content for their TikToks, for their Facebook page, for their stories on Instagram. So now that there's a new group you have to work with as we keep moving further down the food chain.
I'm like throwing up just thinking about that.
And what he talks about here is, like he said, some of these vendors will be passive and they'll in the background and they're doing their thing and some of them want to be the stars of the show, and they're going to be jumping up in front of you and saying, can you do this? Can you do that? All right, everybody jump, all that kind of stuff that content creators do. That was the first one I read, and I'm like, oh crap.
And photographers will be tripping over that.
I know.
All over them.
Yeah. It's definitely something that I see happening.
Yeah, and you know what though? I get it, because you have to do what the customer wants.
Yeah.
Right? And the customer today, the young brides and grooms, obviously, they're concerned about the TikTok of and the stories of and I don't mean story of like love story, I mean the Facebook story and the Instagram stories, the little live short videos. They're as concerned about that as they are getting a traditional wedding book.
Well, so
right?
With this, I think what's interesting about it, and he kind of puts that at the end of this prediction, is I think this is going to be like an evolution that we as photographers, we as videographers kind of have to go ourselves down this path, right? Where we got to start incorporating using phones, using devices, recording, that it might be something like, I understand, and I totally get it, because it makes me kind of want to,
it makes me kind of want to,
it's just cringy. But I mean, like you said, that's where customers are going, and that's what they want. And then you have to decide as the vendor, do I even want to do that?
Right.
Do we want to put up with that? But I mean,
I think we're in an ever evolving industry, the photography industry, the days of film. I remember when Photoshop came along, everybody was like, oh, we can't do this. It's ever evolving. Everything's changing. And,
he's right.
And we have to adapt to these changes. We have to, learn these things. If we want to be successful, we want to continue doing what we love, we have to make sure that we adapt to these.
John,
AI is another one.
agree with everything you said. I just hate it.
No,
we don't have to like it. We just have to do it.
I agree. Because that's where, I do think that, like what you just said, we have to adapt to, AI is the next one, and that's the other evolution. But it's interesting because as a photographer, and as we are content creators, it's just that's a different name for it, right? I get what they're saying there. As a photographer, as a videographer, there are certain principles, though, like defining principles that will never change, right? And I think that's why we cringe sometimes, because we're looking at it. And I think the hardest thing that I have a lot of times is buying into trends, and really getting into trends, because they go in and out of style, where the classic photography stuff, the fundamentals never go out of style, right?
They never do.
They're just always there.
And if we are delivering content in the photography world that is eye-opening, that people look at, oh wow, I've never seen anything like that before.